The book that I chose was The Noisy Paint Box. It was written by Barb Rosenstock and illustrated by Mary Grand Prix, and it's a story about the colors and sounds of Kandinsky's abstract art. He is one of the first abstract artists, and this book earned the Caldecott Honor Award. One of the things that to note prior to getting started in the story is that the illustrations were created with acrylic paint and paper collage. One thing to notice about just the front of the book is that there's not a lot of blank space. Everything is completely filled. You can see the boy. He's looking into some sort of box, which is a huge clue into the story. You've got a paintbrush set right here, and then behind him is kind of a background of the story, which kind of sets the setting of where the story takes place. I'd like to open up the book so you can see the whole piece. You can see it's just a huge spread, double page. It goes from either side. It almost looks like a window on either side with a curtain. When you open up the book, you have the dust jacket, and then inside on the end pages, there's little swabs of paint, brush strokes. You've also got a nice background here. And then on the inside of the dust jacket, there's a little bit about the story of the boy and how he was a proper little boy. He always studied bookfuls of math and history. He practiced the piano. He sat up straight and was perfectly polite. So it just kind of puts a nice tone on the story to get an introductory kind of introduction. So one thing I really like is that all the different colors that the illustrator used, also putting a background kind of shows the abstractness of the storyline. You open up to the title page, and you can see that you're looking inside of a paint box. You can see all of the colors that you're going to use. You've got the paintbrushes. Things don't look neat and clean. They look like maybe they've been used. And then you come to the first page, and it's kind of dark. Again, everything's very full. It's a double page spread. And then there's also a small frame, but nothing too large, so it doesn't go completely off to the end of the page, but it still is a double page spread. There's a lot of color, not a lot of blank space, something to note. Then you come to the next page, you see the boy. Again, his facial expressions are very clear. They really tie in with the text. One thing that I thought was really interesting that the illustrator did is if you look really close at the people's faces, there's words, and they're coming out of their mouth. They're all jumbled up. You can't really read them, but it really goes with the text that says, "He sat stiff and straight at the dressed up dinners while the grown-ups talked and talked and talked." So it really conveys to the reader exactly how this boy is feeling. Then on the next page, this is where his aunt gives him this paint box. He looks like he's very interested, very intrigued. Also, the illustrator has, again, a lot of background. It's really showing some of the characterization. And this is the first page where he kind of starts to get into his painting. So you start to see all the vibrant colors coming out. You can see his facial expressions are improving. It's zoomed in. You can really get involved with his eyes. Something I really liked about this story. Also in the text, you can kind of see how the words are written just in a slightly different way, which is also engaging and kind of ties in with what the movement of the illustrations is supposed to be illustrating. You come to the next page, lots of movement. Very clear. I really liked how the illustrator had this boy here of showing all of the different things that he's hearing from his dad when he opens up that paint box. He's got his Papa saying things, his mama saying things, basically saying that he's not meeting what their expectations. One thing that I noticed was this looks like the back of his aunt. It looks like that she was kind of going on the last page, and she's kind of turned away, and so I don't know if she's maybe, the illustrator's trying to convey that he's kind of going from behind. He's going over and making his own art behind her back, and then he's got his family over here that's pushing him away. Just very interesting how the illustrator decided to put that aunt there, yet she's kind of hidden. One of the things that this artist really emphasizes is that he hears the music he can see the music dancing, and he can feel it, and he really wants to show that in his art. And so one thing that's really neat is you can see the music notes inside of the art that he's creating, which was a great way for this illustrator to kind of tie in that piece of how this artist feels music and how he shows it in his illustrations or in his own art, his abstract art. I love this page because there's tons of color. You can just, it's a happy page. He's engaged. He's hearing the sounds of the colors. He's enjoying himself, which is so different from the beginning of the story where the pictures were dark and you could see his face. He's not happy. And then as the story goes on, as he starts to get more involved in his art, it's exciting. It's happy. It brings the reader in. It kind of puts a nice emphasis on how he's feeling about being able to do his art. Then he's coming downstairs because he's so excited to show his art to his family. And yet again, his family is saying that is not the type of art that he should be doing. He needs to be going and doing some math. They need to calm down. And then it kind of gets dark again. I noticed that this flower is kind of drooped down. I don't know if that's supposed to symbolize possibly kind of his feelings about what's going on in his life right now. Then he decides to sit and think, and it says, as the years passed, Vasse finished school and studied to be a lawyer. He ignored his noisy paint box and lived the way that people expected. So again, he's just kind of fitting to what people expect, and then the illustrations again go dark. Then you go to the page right next to it, so you can see a clear change in perspective from the illustrations. He's really thinking about it. He's thinking about the music that he's hearing at an orchestra. He decides to go off and do his own art. No one seems to know what he's making. Everything that he's creating is so abstract. It's not flowers. It's not houses. It's not your typical what's to be expected. Again, this is where he's kind of sharing his art with his friends, and finally he finds a connection. He invites them to see his art. And then this page, it has all of the words that really show the feelings and what Vasse Kandinsky was feeling and what he was hearing when he heard music. So everything's dancing. It whistled, it zipped, rattle, bash, hiss. Really connects the reader. And I think it's interesting. All of these people, they look so proper, you know. Because he needed to fit into a certain box in a certain way, and they look a little confused as to what this is supposed to mean. But I feel like having the words on there mixed in with the illustrations just really ties in the overall feeling. Again, he opens up his paint box. He's excited. Again, there's a clear directionality of how you're supposed to kind of flow with the story. I thought this was a very neat page because it just has a piece of his art on it. It has just a slight frame, so it has a bottom, and then there's a little girl that's looking into it, and it talks about what do you see, and how you kind of get to make your own perspective with the art. And then at the end of the story, it kind of goes into a little bit about the artist. It shows some of his paintings and some background about them. And then it goes into a little bit more of the sources, the publication page, and then you hit that dust jacket again. A neat thing about this book is that there's actual quotes from the artist himself. So I could hear the hiss of the colors as they mingled. And it kind of ties in as to why the paint strokes are this way, why all of his art is this way, and why it was so significant to this story. And then you go to the end, and it kind of closes the book, kind of puts a nice setting. Again, there's a nice quote on the back from the artist.